the second topic, the NFL so far has not been very receptive to players' concerns about COVID-19. And that's really unfortunate to hear because we've seen how much, the NHL and MLB has had to really listen to its players in order to get it into fruition, which is finally going to be coming back pretty soon. But players on Twitter have been actually speaking out about this. I saw Richard Sherman speak out about it. I saw Patrick Mahomes speak out of it. And, one of the most relevant players to this podcast, Khalil Mack, he actually sent out a tweet saying about how much he wants to play football and how just the NFL's lack of addressing players' concerns has really been difficult for the players. And a lot of people, unfortunately, this is kind of the situation with the NFL fan base. They view these players as, just go do your job. That seems to be like a typical, common fan perspective on this, on players. But at the end of the day, they're humans just like you and I. They have concerns about their families just like you and I, and they want to stay safe to, make sure their family's safe. I mean, you look at Nick Foles. I mean, he just had a new baby with his wife. And I know you can say, hey, he's going to be paid like $9 million this year, but I mean, nothing can pay for healthiness and happiness of your family, So it's important as NFL fans that we stay understanding about where these players are coming from. And I really hope that, it sucks because it seems like the NFL is constantly behind in this like player relations department of professional sports, especially when you compare it to like the NBA, who seems to be the best league in terms of that. I mean, look how long it took. If you desire it to, if you believe it's bad or good or whatever, that doesn't matter. But look how long it took for the NFL to get marijuana allowed when the NBA, they haven't been drug testing for a very long time,
Yeah. I think you hit on the moral aspect of it very well. These players have families that they, want to see, that they want to make sure are healthy, et cetera, just like the rest of us. But I think also another part that needs to be taken into account too is, their body is basically like their investment. It's like their own business. If you're a big name athlete, you're basically a brand, like Patrick Mahomes.
And their lungs.
Yeah, exactly. They're a brand, and they need to protect that. They're basically investing in themselves, and, you're not going to do anything that's going to purposely harm that investment. You want it to be as safe and secure as possible. So I think that, they're really acting, and people, I understand why people go, because these players are paid, wages that most of us would only dream to make in our lifetime, and we'll never even really get close to making. But at the same time, if you were in that situation, you'd want the same thing. I firmly believe that. And, whether it's the moral or the business side, whichever one speaks more to you, I think that basically the NFL needs to learn that they need to be more responsive. And if anything, in this whole situation, if we have learned anything about this whole, COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, is that we need good communication. And the NFL has really been lacking on that.
Yeah, it seems like they've had all summer. They have the longest offseason to figure out the exact protocols that's going to put the league in the best position to succeed this year. And somehow they seem to not be reaching that. And we've talked extensively on this podcast recently about just how detrimental COVID-19 could potentially be on the league. And they've obviously came up with some good ideas as far as preserving revenue with like the whole idea of putting the advertising in the first 6 rows and everything like that. But when you don't address one of the core issues, which is player health, team health, that's a major issue. You do not know where that's going to go. And at the end of the day, 52, sure, like there's 90 players. I think they cut that number down slightly. I think they did put in a protocol where like it's like 10 players less. It might just be 80 this year. But okay. I mean, say 80 people in a training camp. Those 80 people, let's say they have 5 family members that they see on a regular basis, that multiplies it exponentially. Let's say that those 5 people in their families each see 5 people, just close friends or whatever, and you're getting this much larger pool of individuals. It's easy to say, hey, it's only 80 people in a practice, but when you really think of the amount of people that a player sees on a day-to-day basis. And when you even consider going to the store, or if their wife is going to the store, or if their kids are going to see their friends even a little bit, like the unfortunate part about COVID-19 is it's just so contagious. And, if you believe it's a big deal or not, we're not going to argue with that on this podcast. However, we do support that you go out and buy yourself a goddamn mask and wear it in the fucking store so you don't get the rest of us sick. But if you believe it's a good idea or not, or if it's a big deal or not, the fact of the matter is that it's extremely contagious and it is going to take players out for a long period of time. It's going to take players out for a long period of time. It's going to take multiple players out for a long period of time. So I have my own concerns about that. And honestly, as a fan of the NFL, as someone who's spent, probably at this point, thousands of dollars on merchandise and going to games and, flags or whatever that may be, just like my viewership on television to give them ad revenue. It sucks because I feel like they're not only not serving the players, but by not serving the players, they're also not serving the fans very well.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen so far is, as we kind of talked about, a few podcasts back, which, is going to have huge ramifications in the future, is they're already thinking about how much they're going to have to cut the salary cap by. So the NFL has been addressing the business side of it, but they failed the players. They failed who are essentially, a lot of the workers in the league. I mean, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that aren't players, aren't playing on the field, but they're failing one of the large group of workers for the whole league. And in doing so, you're putting the whole league at risk, because without the players, there's no game. If they can't keep their players healthy, then there's going to be nothing to watch, and then the league is going to fail. I mean, the NFL is a huge business, and I'm sure they can, really afford some losses, here and there. But, you can only make so many of these mistakes. You can only push, this problem so far down the road. And, what the NFL has done is they've put, honestly, probably this season at risk in a bit by being so lax and by not having a clear plan in place, or if they have a plan, not communicating it to the teams or to the players.
Even though these players are paid so much, it is the NFL's responsibility to keep them safe. It wouldn't be fair to pay, let's just say like a regular employee a couple $1 million if his life was at risk every time he, did whatever he did. It's just, you still need to protect the players, and that's the biggest thing. And by not protecting the players, by not protecting the workers, you're not protecting the league. And you can have all the revenue ideas you want, but at the end of the day, if football isn't aired, if there isn't a product on the field, or if there isn't an intriguing product to fans, that's a major issue. It's a major issue. And the thing that sucks is the NFL was in the best position to get this right. They could learn from every single other league how they handled it. Reese, you and I have talked about potential logical, possible concepts that could happen, that could definitely protect the league from COVID outbreaks and such. And it almost seems as if the NFL isn't doing their due diligence to actually even investigate ideas like that. Now, maybe they are behind the scenes. Maybe they have this grand master plan, as you said, Reese, that maybe they're just keeping this behind the scenes for now. They're trying to come up with all the ideas and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I'm left with a feeling of uncertainty that we're going to be able to see this season as a full, this coming season. And I don't like that as a fan. I don't want to be talking about football, like random storylines on this podcast for the next year because Roger Goodell didn't do his due diligence with the COVID-19 outbreak. I don't want that to happen. And I'm afraid that, players are going to get to camp. COVID's going to be increasing in all their cities. Players are going to get COVID. Whole teams will get shut down. And we're not going to have a product on the field for next season. And let's remember this, is that the NFL is not the boss of COVID. COVID is the boss of the NFL. And we need to remember that wholeheartedly, because COVID doesn't answer to anybody. It's not going to magically disappear. It's still going to be an issue. All we can do is manage how much it impacts the game. And it doesn't seem like the NFL is doing a very good job at thinking forward enough for that.
Yeah, you can really only work within, what the situation is giving you. And yeah, you brought up a really good point. The NFL can't really dictate, how the coronavirus is going to impact the season. They can only really try to minimize its effect. And, as of right now, it doesn't really seem like they have too many measures in place to make sure that happens, which is definitely a worry for, the status of the season and, what kind of.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.